Monica. Just realized that now. Let's rewind, try that again. It is Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. DraftKings lines went live about half hour ago, so I have adjusted kind of my approach to this along with my written post over at Sports Coast to Coast. Speaking of which, if you don't know me already, my name is Alex Schuberth. I am the lead IFL contributor over for the forum called Sports Coast to Coast. They're a Pacific Northwest-based sports forum site that specializes in the coverage of the IFL and its member teams specifically. We've got up-to-date team rosters, game previews, recaps, everything else in between. It is a very passionate group of fans that loves to cover this great game. If you haven't already, definitely check the forum out. The URL is below in the description. And there you will also find my written version of these Wager Wednesday posts as well. So we'll switch a few things around here. And I welcome you in to week 2 of the 2025 season. So tonight we are going to go over what happened last weekend. We had 3 games to kick our season off. A brief synopsis there of each of the 3. We'll get to those in a little bit more detail when we get to the game-by-game tracker, which is coming up right after this. We have the season-long tracker starting to build up. Obviously, only 3 games so far, but that will continue to be built up as we go about the regular season here. We're going to be using this quite a bit to craft our picks on a week-to-week basis, where we're going to try to identify common trends. So how are teams performing against the spread? How are they performing against the implied total? To see if we can glean some value that way. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll chart course for week 2. If you liked week 1's action, I've got good news for you. Week 2 is double the fun. 6 games across 4 days. We'll take a crack at another 3-leg parlay, see if we can hit for 2 weeks in a row. Spoiler alert, there are no futures bets that I can find thus far. Similar thing happened 2 years ago when futures came out about midway through the season. So it's not a total surprise that they aren't available yet. It's just a little bit disappointing. That's all. So what did we have last week? We had 2 games kick us off on Friday evening. The first game to kick off was the Jacksonville Sharks and the Massachusetts Pirates. And Jacksonville's status as a bona fide contender for the league championship was cemented in this one. Their defense just made life miserable for new Pirates quarterback Kenji Behar. 4 turnovers in that game. Even though Jacksonville did have 4 turnovers of their own, they happened at points where they were well ahead of the game, and Massachusetts was still trying to figure things out on the offensive side of the ball. Basically, the dream outcome for Jacksonville, they get the win 46-25. We had picked them to cover at a 5.5-point spread, and because they outright won, they effectively covered. The other game, down at the Illinois-Iowa corridor, saw the Green Bay Blizzard head to Quad City to play the Steam Wheelers. And this one, it felt like a heavyweight battle, man. There was back and forth, possessions lasting 6 to 9 minutes each. Some teams would get the stand. Other teams would push through for the touchdown. Ultimately, it would be Quad City that got a defensive stop while ahead in the game that kind of pushed them through. Green Bay, though, they tried to stage a valiant comeback. They were down by 10 with 11 seconds left. They get a touchdown plus a 2-point conversion, and they were 1 deuce away from forcing overtime and putting this bet at serious peril. Andrew Mevis's kick went wide to the left on that deuce attempt, and Quad City was able to gain positive yardage on that final drive of theirs, and they escape 39-37 to start their season 1-0, whereas Green Bay's week 1 woes continue. They are 0-1 to start for a second consecutive year. We capped off week 3 with Tulsa at San Antonio. This game, I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be a lot more offensively driven than what we saw on Saturday night. But I guess such is the nature of early season IFL football. Both teams markedly improved on the defensive front, but it was the Oilers that ended up winning the turnover battle. Trey Harvey, a pair of interceptions for the guy that has all IFL upside at the linebacker/defensive back position. TJ Edwards did everything that he needed to do, even though it wasn't his flashiest effort. And the Oilers get their first ever win against a team from the Western Conference, 28-20. They go into San Antonio and defeat the Gunslingers. So that was our week 1 summary. We got both of our picks on the spread correct, and our lone over-under pick turned out to be quite the dud. But still, a 2 out of 3 week, mighty respectable. If we end up winning 2/3 of our bets, I will be a speechlessly happy man. I'll put it that way. We have our parlay tracker. We may have mentioned this earlier, but we hit on all 3 of our legs from this past week. We rode the unders for both of Friday's games, which hit. Green Bay Quad City, again, was a little bit scary had that game gone into overtime. And then the Oilers ended up winning outright, -130 money line. The end result, we hit on a bet that paid a little bit under 11-2 odds. We turned $10 into $64.48, net gain of $54.48. This is exactly how I envisioned we set the tone for the season when it comes to parlays, because now, even if we lose 5 straight from here, we're still operating at a slight net gain. So that really goes to show the high risk, high reward of these types of bets. So here are our results from a flat betting and a weighted betting standpoint. Pretty similar to how last year started out, where we put the most confidence in the bet that turned out to be incorrect, whereas both of our other bets that had a little bit less on the weighted method turned out to be correct. So that's why the flat method is currently outperforming the weighted method through the first 3 games. But at the very least, we have a few plot points there. And we'll see how those kind of trend up or down as our season continues here. Same deal with our ROI chart. From experience, this one's going to be very, very wacky and fluctuated through the first 4 or 5 weeks or so. And then there will come a point midway through where things kind of plateau. Where exactly that point is going to be defined by how we do in the early going. And with less games to work with this year than what we had last year, an early start that's great is all that more important. So a lot of numbers here, but this is the full population of games that we're going to be tracking throughout the season. So if we look at teams against the spread, favorites covered 2 out of the 3. In our case, that was Jacksonville covering against Massachusetts and Green Bay, or Quad City covering rather, against the Green Bay Blizzard. Obviously, no teams made the over this week, so it'll be up to somebody else to give us our first over cash of the season in week 2, if we do happen to have a game go over, which last year we did not. Team by team, again, we're kind of building the same exact thing here. For this one, I've also put the 2024 performance for each team to kind of see how those change from last year to this year. These will be very valuable data points for when we come up with early season picks for the teams that have yet to play, or even for the teams that already have played a game in week 1 of this season. Fishers, we obviously are kind of new with them. This is their first year in the league. We'll get to see how they do in their inaugural season too. And then this is our tracker for our performance on our bets. So we won our spread bet with the Sharks Pirates game. So each of those are 1-0. Same deal with the Green Bay Quad City game. And our over under on the San Antonio Tulsa game was off. So that's why each of those are marked as 0-1. So this will be good as well, because this will help kind of keep things in frame when evaluating one of my preseason goals of trying to win at least 7 bets with every single team this season. So some disclaimers before we get things kicked off for our game analysis and our picks. Lines and odds, even though they tried their darndest not to have this happen, they're going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook. In the event that they do not, I'll refer to either ESPN Bet or FanDuel, which apparently now carries IFL games, to kind of fill in those blanks. This series is meant purely for entertainment and curiosity. We're not trying to make money here. If we happen to get most of our picks right, it's just a nice little added bonus. There's no such thing as locks or guarantees in the sports wagering world, regardless of people that might tell you otherwise. If you'd like to tail my bets and follow along, you're more than welcome to do so, but please do so responsibly and legally. In most places, you've got to be 21 or older to play. And practice safe gaming habits. Have a budget, risk only what you can afford to lose, manage your time wisely. And if your loved one is having trouble with problem gaming, there are a bunch of resources online that you can refer to for help in that area. Mine right down there, haveagameplan.org, is the example that I've been touting for the past year plus now. Like I said, it's a fantastic resource to get help with gambling-related problems. And with that, we are ready to head to the board and make some picks. I'll get this zoomed in a little bit. And here we go. We're back at it on a Friday evening. We have 2 7:05 kickoffs. We're going to start off with the Quad City Steamwheelers and the Massachusetts Pirates, 1-0 against 0-1. Despite last week's subpar showing, the Pirates are still favored by 1.5. Oddly enough, on FanDuel, it's actually Quad City that's favored by 1.5. But the over-under here is 80.5. Quad City is even money if you like that as an outright win. And the Pirates are at -120 on the money line. And listen, there's a bit to be said about, that first 60 minutes of game action. Is that kind of indicative of what we're going to see from this team moving forward? So for those who are concerned about the Massachusetts Pirates, those are valid concerns. I mean, you look at the past 3 games that they've lost between the regular season finale against Tulsa, the IFL championship against Arizona, and the last week against Jacksonville. They're a -78 in scoring differential. And they failed to score more than 26 points in any of those 3 games. So we've seen on more than one occasion what bottoming out looks like for the Massachusetts Pirates. But even in their 21-point defeat, I think they did a lot well. Namely, Puka Williams, who looks like a star in the making at the running back position. I feel like he should be the focal point of the offense to help lighten the load for Kenji Behar as he acclimates to the speed of the IFL game. The defense forced 4 takeaways. They look as deadly as ever. And even though the scoreboard said Jacksonville 46, they did pretty much everything in their power to keep the Pirates in the game. So they have playmakers. The question becomes, how well are they able to bounce back? And it's going to be tough to do against a Quad City team that just dethroned Green Bay. Albeit that was at home. The road, as any Steamwheeler fan can tell you, is a much, much different story. In the past 2 regular seasons, they are 5-11 on the road. So nothing particularly inspiring there. So we'll have to see how well their game travels with a brand new supporting cast. My pick for this game is a little bit of a biased one. I'm taking the Pirates at the money line, minus 120. This has to be a bounce back game for Massachusetts, and they know it as well. You know, their past 2 games, they've been firmly kicked in the teeth. How are they going to respond? This feels like the first time in a while where they have truly been tested in that regard. And Quad City's road play in recent seasons definitely gives me concern as well about backing Quad City in any capacity. So I'm going to say the Pirates break even here. They get to 1-1. They grind out a win. They find a way because they can't drop 0-2 into the hole, especially with those 2 losses coming at home potentially. So this is where the ship gets straightened out. Massachusetts money line. Iowa and Green Bay. The Blizzard back at home at the Resch Center. Brand new turf, brand new home uniforms that the Blizzard are going to be boasting. They're laying 5 in the hook. Over under is 81.5. The Barnstormers plus 160 on the money line, and Green Bay is minus 192. I'll be honest, I kind of chuckled when I initially saw this line. We think about what Green Bay did in 2024 at the Resch Center. Aside from those couple games against the Pirates, they were bodying people in this arena. Their average margin of victory, 18 points in their wins at the Resch Center. That includes a 29-point win against Frisco, 28 over Jacksonville. They had a couple other 20-plus point wins in that streak as well. And Iowa, believe it or not, was actually one of the very few teams that managed to kind of keep a little bit of pace with Green Bay, more so than many other teams that lined up against them. The wins that Green Bay had last year against Iowa were by 7, 11, and 14 points. So Green Bay, though they certainly outplayed Iowa, it wasn't like it was just an absolute laugher either. But Iowa, I mean, there's concerns about them, right? They've only won 8 games in the last 2 years combined. They're going to have a brand new quarterback, a lot of new pieces on both sides of the ball. They do have some really, really good players in Keon Williams, wide receiver, and Tyler Tate along the defensive line. Those are excellent building blocks. But I think we've seen this Ryman song play out before. This is ultimately going to come down to new quarterback on one sideline, seasoned veteran on the other. And we saw how that played last week in the game between Jacksonville and Massachusetts. For that reason, I'm going to lay the points here and take Green Bay on the spread. I initially had my model set out for this as Green Bay winning by 13 on average. So this is an insanely good line to get. If these lines are available over at FanDuel, you can actually get Green Bay at minus 3.5, which is positively absurd. And it's only minus 114 over at FanDuel as well. So it's not like you're paying a hefty premium to get those couple of points. I would honestly play this up to 8.5 if it had to be set at that. This is one of my more confident picks of the week. Give me Green Bay at home to give their fans a rousing performance in their home opener. Our standalone Saturday game. This is the inaugural debut of the Fishers Freight. This is their only road non-conference game of the season. And they're up against the Northern Arizona Wranglers, who are favored by 1.5. Over-under is 84 and the hook. The new kids on the block, the Freight, are even money. And the Wranglers are minus 20 on that money line option. And these expansion games are very, very interesting. Like the openers for the new teams, we've had a couple of them so far. We had 2022 when the Vegas Nighthawks played Northern Arizona in their franchise opener. In 2023, we had Tulsa play Frisco in the Oilers' first ever game. None of those games even made it to 50 points. I think the Vegas Northern Arizona game only had 31 combined, and Tulsa Frisco only had 48. So there's just something about these games involving new teams where there's just no flow. There's no continuity. And on that dialogue, you can kind of see where I'm going with this bet. Because honestly, it's a matter of, it's a new team in the league versus a team that's currently ranked 14th on the coaches poll. Do I really want to play with the spread or the money line? I would say no. Not for my single game bets anyways. The under at 84.5. Somehow, some way, I don't know how this game is tied for the highest implied total of the week. I really don't. Does this game even get to 60 with, the players that are out on that field? It's like, I mean, sure, you have Jaya Wright and JT Stokes on Fishers. You have David Elder sticking around for Northern Arizona. But I just think this is going to be a grimy, groggy sort of defensive duel. Dixie Wooten for Fishers, one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the game. This is going to be a far different Wranglers team than what we saw a year ago with guys like Josh Jones, RZ McCorker. I just don't see a lot of points being had in this game. So this play, just like the Green Bay spread one of my most confident picks out there, under 84.5 is my play. And Monica says Fishers will outright win over Northern Arizona. I don't hate that bet. I really don't. There's a very realistic possibility it could happen. And we had 2 underdogs outright win last week out of 3. So very, very realistic. All right. Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern in the desert. We will have a banner raising ceremony at Desert Diamond Arena with the Arizona Rattlers hosting the Tucson Sugar Skulls. Arizona favored by 8.5, over under 82.5. Sugar Skulls are plus 260 money line, whereas the Rattlers are minus 325. Very interesting season is going to await Tucson here. Obviously, they had some issues last year, quarterback play, lack of continuity on offense as a result, and they wound up with a league worst 2-14 record. So that organization, head coach Billy Back, no pun intended, they're looking to bounce back, especially considering where their city has been tabbed as the next host for the upcoming 3 IFL championship games. So if that doesn't serve as any motivation to try to sneak your way into the top 4 in the conference, set the stage for a playoff run, I don't know what will. The Sugar Skulls are going to have a few familiar faces on offense, namely longtime veteran Charles McCullum is going to be the expected starting quarterback for Sunday's contest. Mike Jones reprises his role at running back. So we could see a very run-heavy approach from the Sugar Skulls. I believe Brian Smith is still on the team. He was one of their top receivers a season ago. So a lot of players who are kind of stuck in Tucson last year looking to kind of flip the page and try to get Tucson back to the playoffs where they made it in each of the past couple seasons prior to last year. Meanwhile, for Arizona, some pretty interesting stuff happening this week out in Glendale. In particular, the re-signing of back-to-back IFL champion Dalton Sneed to be the team's quarterback, presumably for week 1. There hasn't been much knowledge that I've seen made about Drew Powell's availability, so he might be hurt, or maybe it's an RTR situation. I don't know exactly all the details there. But in any event, I do not think the Rattlers signed Sneed to hold a clipboard or an iPad or whatever the backups these days are carrying. I don't know. But in any event, I look at this game. There's two guiding factors to what my selection ended up at. Number one, Arizona's defense in the tail end of last season, along with the 3-game playoff run, was all sorts of absurd. And they're bringing back pretty much all of that defense, which proved, especially in the highest stakes settings, Arizona's defense has as much upside as anybody's in the league. From forcing incomplete passes, taking the ball away, just coming up with explosive plays on that side of the ball. It might be a hard time for the Sugar Skulls, who, by the way, in one of the crazier trends of last season, finished with 8 consecutive unders cash. That was one of my favorite trends of last year. And I'm going to bank on this game, making it 9 for 9. There obviously is the fear of Dalton Snead putting up a 50-plus point attack on a Tucson defense that we really don't know a whole lot about. But if last week was any indication, just because you have the players with the proven backgrounds, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would come out of the gate firing. But I've got to follow these trends here until these prove otherwise. I do like this call. So I'm going to play Tucson, Arizona under 82.5 for the first of our Sunday doubleheader. On Sunday at 8, second game to kick off, sees the San Antonio Gunslingers coming off that tough loss. The road does not get much easier for them. They'll hit the road to face off against the Bay Area Panthers, who were the Western Conference's number 1 seed last year. Bay Area is laying 7.5, over under 83.5. If you do like the Gunslingers for an upset special, it's an appetizing plus 240. And Bay Area minus 298 on that money line. So the Gunslingers, very similar problem to what the Pirates had in their opener. Just could not get that offense going, even with several pieces in place. Now, I'll concede they did have multiple starters wind up on the injured report to start off the year, namely Naquan Murray and Kali Rashad, which certainly doesn't help. But Glenn Gibbons looks like the real deal in a Gunslinger uniform. He showed out insanely well on Saturday against the Oilers. So you have the Gunslingers who have already played against Bay Area, who will be taking the field for the very first time. And they have a ton of really good new pieces coming in on offense. They just signed RZ McCorker, like we had mentioned briefly before. They got Joshua Jones, the reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year, to spearhead that offense. And that defense, that was a top 2 unit last year. It's basically all the way back with reinforcements. So this is a very interesting game to pick. Again, I'm hesitant on the spread. I'd probably go Bay Area if it was minus 6.5, but I just don't like laying that 7.5 beyond the key number. But I'm also not confident enough in San Antonio to take that 7 and a hook as well. So I'm going to go, again, with the pick. That was 12-4 last year. Bay Area Panthers and unders. So very similar in mold to what Tucson did last year, where they were 12-4 to the under. I think Bay Area can hold their own and continue to keep life miserable here for the Gunslingers. The Panthers proved last year that, they're comfortable winning games like 38-31 or 45-31. And if we happen to get a final score like that, that's basically all we need to have happen in order for this to hit. So, yeah, I know that this session has turned into a little bit of maybe a Debbie Downer with our third consecutive underpick now. But this has been the trend for the past few seasons where scoring has really struggled out of the gate. in the IFL. 2023 was a little bit of an exception, but a little bit of a digression there. But I'm confident that this pick will ultimately hold. Just too many questions with the Gunslingers right now, with their offense, what their identity's like, how their injuries are affecting that outlook. Meanwhile, Bay Area is a little bit more fresh, especially on the defensive side. So give me Guns, Panthers, under. Sixth and final game here. We have the Vegas Nighthawks and San Diego Strikeforce. That's going to be a Monday 10 o'clock Eastern kick. Game's expected to be close. Vegas is the only road team favored tonight or this week. Yep. Unless you count the FanDuel Quad City Mass game. Vegas favored by 1.5, over under 84 in the hook. Vegas minus 120 money line, and San Diego is even money. I cannot wait to see this game unfold. Just simply based on what we saw last year between these teams in the two meetings that they had. These were so close, and they kept you on the edge of your seat, heck, off the edge of your seat, all the way through wire to wire the full 60 minutes. Vegas, Jerome Johnson is back. The Nighthawks have reinforcements on both sides of the ball as well. And San Diego, they get Nate Davis back. A lot of that supporting cast returning. The defense remains as intimidating as ever. This is going to be a battle between two teams that could very realistically be number 1 and number 2 in this conference when all is said and done. So I will take a minute here to say we've picked unders throughout the entire season so far. This is the game that is going to finally break through. Last year's games, go look at them. One of them was 68-64, and another one was 60-59. And conceptually, we haven't taken that much away from either team. And we know the offensive upside that Nate Davis has, even in the back nine of his career. We know the upside Jerome Johnson has, MVP caliber player. I could honestly see this game getting to 100 points. The extra rest relative to the rest of the teams in the league should be somewhat of a help. But I just think there's way too much skill offensively to have this be anything below like 89.5. So I'm delighted that I can get it at 84.5 here. Bonus points if this winds up being the first game of the season to break its point total. So we'll see what happens there. I'm going to go over on Vegas and San Diego. Okay, it is now time to construct our 3-leg parlay of the week. And this is the one that I had in mind. We'll start things off. Green Bay on the money line. Keep it nice and simple. A good first leg to get us through the door. Simply put, the Blizzard have just dominated this series. And the fact that we can get a historically dominant home team in the Blizzard at anything better than minus 250 is astoundingly good value. So even though it doesn't look like a necessarily flashy pick, again, it's one that I feel like has a reasonable shot at hitting. Of course, I mean, Iowa might surprise, but that's why I'm going to take money line, because I do not see a path to the Barnstormers winning this game. The second leg, I had to debate on a little bit, especially when these DraftKings lines opened up, because I was using FanDuel before. I ended up making a change from what I originally posted, and this is one that you might like, Monica. Let's take Fishers for the outright win. Let's do it. Think back to the last time that Northern Arizona played against an expansion team in their debut. It was that 22 game. It was Vegas, and the Wranglers lost that game. And they didn't look terribly great either. And one thing that I learned for this year compared to last year is I'm taking a lot more stake in the coaches poll than what I did in years past. I'm obviously not like taking that and like running blindly with it, but I am considering, hey, this is a list put together by, the people that are closest to the league and its players. So it's got to have some merit to it. I will say that's what guided my pick primarily on the Jacksonville, Massachusetts game last week, where I took the Sharks spread, and that delivered really well. So could we buy the point and play it a little bit safe for a dime? I guess we could. But Northern Arizona, they're the 14th ranked team in that aforementioned coaches poll. I say we take this shot. We're playing with house money at this point. Let's take the shot on the dog. Fishers as our second leg to start their franchise history off with a win. Third leg, I'm going to see if we can push things through to Monday night. Give us a little bit something to root for, assuming those two legs hit. And my pick there is San Diego on the spread. This team was a spread money-making machine in the early going. I think they had covered in each of their first 7 or 8 games last year. It was something diabolical. But even beyond San Diego's success against the number last year, in this all-time series, which is 6 games of a sample size, the home team is 4-2 outright. And the home team won both games a season ago. Fully believe that the Strike Force can contend with the Nighthawks. And it seemed like the Strike Force last year, they were the kings of either winning games really, really close or losing by a point. If we do get that latter scenario where Vegas wins like 48-47, let's say, this will still cash for us because we bought that point in the hook. So again, it's going to be a crazy entertaining game. But that is my 3-leg parlay: Blizzard straight up, Freight straight up, and Strike Force getting a 1.5 on the spread. If successful, that's going to be a plus 480 hit to turn a $10 bet into potentially $58 and a few coins in the pocket. So we'll see if this hits for a second week in a row. It'd be the first time in series history where we've done that. Monica bringing up a good point as well. That season opener in 2022 that they lost by a score of 22-9 did not indicate where they would wind up going later in the season, as they rode a fantastic rookie season from Caleb Barker, MVP caliber performance out of Jaquan Artis, and they defeated Quad City 47-45 in that 2022 IFL National Championship game down in Henderson. So if anybody needs hope after an 0-1 start, if you're back in the Pirates, the Blizzard, or the Gunslingers, 0-1 ain't the end of the world. But it does require a pretty quick turnaround in order to continue to feel good about that possibility happening. So we still do not have any futures bets. I haven't been able to find any markets anywhere out there that has them. So that is going to do it for tonight's instance of Wager Wednesday. I want to thank you so much for tuning in and hearing me out on some of these picks. We'll get things kicked off tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on the IFL Network. Your choice of either Steamwheelers Pirates or Barnstormers Blizzard, or heck, maybe put both tabs up and have them running at the same time. I know I'm going to be at the game for the Pirates tomorrow, so that probably won't be an option for me to set up, but should be entertaining nonetheless. So thank you for tuning in. Go back to watching some of that March Madness going on. Sweet 16 is underway. We'll meet again next week. And if all goes well, we will have another special guest on the show. So something to look forward to. Until then, good luck